Where's my husband gone?
Away.
To do what?
Nothing for you to concern yourself with. You'll be on your own for a while.
I think in one interview you said that this was an anti-bonnet film.
There weren't any bonnets in it. Yeah.
No bonnets.
Yeah.
So what was your intentions going into it in terms of doing something that was period, but obviously something that's not pretty period?
Yeah, I think I've been brought up on British period drama, and I think that Brits sort of feel it's in their DNA. Really, we export a lot of it. It tends to go to America, and they seem to lap it up. And even though that was the case, I felt like the sort of period dramas that I have enjoyed over the years have been the European ones, like La Reine Margot, the French version of Lady Chatterley's Lover. And I think that they sort of see it from a different angle. So we always felt like actually we wanted to make something which was very grounded and real and didn't sort of use all the sort of lavish opulence that you would associate with period drama. And because of the size of our budget, we weren't able to. And actually that made us really focus on what we needed, what was essential to tell this story. You know, it's essentially a story about 5 or 6 people in one location. And ultimately, we also decided that people in 1865 probably had the same sort of feelings and appetites as we do now, and actually that we should represent that in the way in which people behave towards one another, which then sort of grounded it and made it feel a bit more sort of gritty and real.
You will remain indoors with your prayer book.
I like the fresh air. I like being outside.
Take it off. Your nightdress, take it off. Face the wall. Face the wall!
When we went there, we went for a recce to the house where we made this film, and I spent a lot of time. I was at university in Durham, and so I knew the area, so I spent a lot of time in those places that we filmed in. And then we went back and we spent some time there, and it's very important for the writing process that we were able to sort of make it relevant to the, it was responsive in some way. But when you're in the northeast of England, I felt that the light's very different to where I grew up in Guildford, in the south of England. And so it's got this sort of northern European feel. And when we were in the house, we noticed that the light stayed, it was brighter longer. And it led us to this Danish painter called William Hammershaw, who studied Vermeer, actually. He was influenced by Vermeer. He was contemporaneous with the book, so he was painting in the mid-19th century, and a lot of his paintings have these very sort of still, empty rooms with the sort of bare floorboards, very minimal furniture, and then this sort of soft light coming through the window, this Danish light, and then usually a sort of central character standing there dressed in black, facing away from the viewer. And so you don't see her face, and so therefore she's sort of robbed of personality. And for me, that was Catherine. I just felt that we were looking at Catherine standing there, because essentially that's what the men do, they rob her of her personality. And so we used that as a reference, and I showed it to Jacqueline Abrahams, who was the production designer. And she said, this is great, this is a great sort of starting point. Rather than create that sort of Victorian world, which is sort of heavily cluttered and dark, and you have the heavy drapes and that sort of oak-panelled rooms and so on. Let's create a vacuum, an airless vacuum where it's light and bright, but it's silent and people can't breathe. And that became the sort of the basis for our work. And then she brought in all these references of people scratching each other and dogs eating meat and people bleeding and all of this. I thought, that's the point where have we got the right person to, but she wanted to really explore viscera. There's that great moment where Catherine enters the barn, and when she sees that Sebastian is bruised and bleeding, she licks his wounds like an animal. That came out of those conversations. We wanted to have this sort of very austere, sterile sort of atmosphere, completely contrasted with that sort of the brutality of bruising and bleeding and scratching and all of those visceral elements too. So that was what we were thinking about when we made it.
And in terms of the challenges of financing films from a first-time director, does it make a huge difference that it's a first-time director that has all the experience and is made shorts that people admire and all that kind of stuff, or is it still just as tough to?
Well, I mean, it's my first feature film as well, and it was Alice's first feature film, so I mean, it was going to be a challenge no matter what. And I mean, but I think the brilliant thing, Will and Dallas, they were super experienced in theatre, and I was quite experienced in film. I had made so many short films, and I had made one that was quite successful. I was nominated for an Oscar, and so that kind of, that allowed me to move from shorts to features, and I was ready to make my first film. But yeah, trying to get your first feature off the ground is super difficult, and I think for us, we were incredibly grateful that Creative England, they have this scheme for emerging filmmakers called iFeatures, which is essentially Creative England, BFI, BBC Films, and Olgart Media, a private financier, came in later on. And what a brilliant opportunity for emerging filmmakers to access those sorts of financiers and access those exec producers who are incredibly experienced and very knowledgeable. And on our first film, we were just so grateful to have that.
You're home.
You've acted so very shamelessly and so very stupidly. You will never see that man again.
Of course, you know, when you're choosing somebody who's going to basically be in 95% of the film, it's daunting, you know, and we were very lucky to work with Shaheen Baig, the casting director. And Shaheen had cast The Falling, a film by Carol Morley, which was out a couple of years ago.
And this was here with Carol.
Oh, right. So Carol was here with that film, and Florence was in that film too. And I saw that film and thought that she was remarkable then, when she was about 17 years old. Well, she was only 19 when we met her. But what she could do so brilliantly was she could, you know, present that very sort of young, hopeful, optimistic girl you meet at the beginning. And then through a process of auditioning, we saw that she could actually transform and change in the way we needed her to become that person you see at the end, you know, and actually that took remarkable skill and great instincts, which she has, you know. And ultimately, at her core is this sort of great, she's a very sort of defiant person, very sort of strong-willed, and it's crucial for Catherine, you know, that she could, and her, when she read the script, her immediate response was in defence of Catherine all the way through, and that, again, was very important because it's what Alice felt too. It's why she loved this character enough to write her into this film. So we knew we'd met the right person. You know, she was terrific, and you think she's 19 when she made this film, and it's quite a remarkable performance, really. Now she's wrestling with The Rock in LA, so I mean, she can go, yeah, in a film, not just casually, you know, yeah. on the weekend. Yeah.
Sebastian! Let him out! To the cross. To the prison. To the grave. To the sky. I'd rather stop you breathing than have you doubt how I feel.